someone, I think we're ready for our campus tree project introduction from Associate Dean for Academic and Student Affairs, Joan Polson.
Hello, good evening, and thank you to everyone in attendance, to everyone who's a reader, Dr. Steve Bailey, her students, George Towers, Dr. Wills. Thank you everyone for making this event happen. I'm Joan Polson. I'm the Associate Dean at IUPUC, and I'm a member of our campus's Tree Campus Committee. So just as a brief background, IUPUC earned this national recognition as Tree Campus USA for several years running now. And to do that and to keep that status, we actually have to meet 5 core standards each year to maintain this. So Tree Campus USA is an Arbor Day Foundation program, and it honors colleges and universities across the country for their leadership to promote healthy trees and to engage students and staff in the spirit of conservation. And on our campus, I'll give a nod that our finance officer, Naomi Kohnauer, leads this committee, and it's truly a campus-wide effort. Tonight's event is a tradition on its own, as we know, and I've enjoyed it many times myself. And so it's really amazing and wonderful that we were able to kind of collaborate and use this event not only to help these students' work shine, but to help us meet some of these national standards we have to hit. So I do want to thank Dr. Steve Bailey for partnering with us and being so willing to collaborate. And it's not only an evening of beautiful poetry, but a true campus event. I was reading a little bit about sort of the philosophy of art, and there's a quote that says, "The aim of art is not to represent the outward appearance of things, but their significance." And for many years, I think the art and literature of Talking Leaves has naturally included the visual and written art that focuses on life and on trees. And we can certainly see how trees have a significance in our student lives here at IUPUC as a place of gathering and community when we can come together, as a place of relaxation and calm, as a place of solace from the solace of the sun and the heat of those warm August days. I'm delighted that this event can promote not only the outward appearance of trees, but really truly their significance in our lives. And looking out the window at this cold evening, it's certainly wonderful to celebrate the life and the vibrance that trees can give us. So I just really want to thank you for this collaboration and thank the 3 people who've agreed to read on the behalf of this. And I'll turn it back to Dr. Steve Bailey.
Thank you so much, Joan. It's exciting to have a synergistic, collaborative event. And it's just so cool to have the way of things working, if that makes sense, with the tree ideas and the Talking Leaves. So first on our list for tonight's program is Heather Stafford. She's a graduate student in our mental health counseling program, and she's going to read 2 poems she selected from the 2016-2017 issue of Talking Leaves.
Hi, so the first one I chose to read is Undetermined by Lori Haggard because I really liked the image she was able to create with such few words. I slept a few snoozes past my alarm, maybe 70. Violet sunlight ripped from my dreams and said softly, "You must." I threw my pillow at his face, then buried my head, and I wept. Impossible days cannot be lived like this, utterly alone. Coffee and friends cannot make this better, will not bring you back. While I stay and I sleep and I scream and I deny that you're dead, perfect things should be exempt from tragedy, but we weren't. So I cursed the sun and I stay in my bed another day, maybe 70. And then the next one I'm going to read is by Chase Schneider, and it is called Indiana State of Mind. And I really liked it because as someone that's lived in 3 different cities in Indiana, I felt like it really captured the Indiana spirit. Along the harvested fields, glacial plains flat as a disk moon. Clouds hang thick over an Indiana mind. Squirming light catches in the underbelly of overcast skies and hangs halo-like, the epicenters of human private passion. Towns and cities stretch out endlessly beneath the mists, connected by the ever-churning vascular system of interstates and highways and county roads. almost barren save for a select population of earthosite taillights and leucocyte headlights. A quiet world, a simple Indiana, which on the surface appears placid as Lake Monroe, Patoka, Mississauga, or Wawasee, yet beneath the surface stirs with the inexhaustible prolixity of desire. The gentle quakes and rumblings of an Indiana mind stir below steel-toed feet. In the early dawn, hour of the wolf, men groggily tie their laces, preparing to escape to fluorescent industrial floors, where nothing exists but a clock, a counter, and a bell sitting on lunch boxes. They contemplate philosophy of the sound of torque wrenches and the smell of hot steel. Indianapolis wakes sullen, a molten iron heart beating fumes, mist exuding out from manholes and drains. Below, Rotwang himself laughs maniacally as he resurrects the terrible machine mock from the heart of desire, beginning the apocalypse of modern man, city, metropolis. The Circle City spins itself around and around on the winds of culture. Cultural subjugation, she pays fealty to the Windy City. The throne of Metropolis acts as a baseline of brass and hard drugs, cigarette smoke, and vapors of alcohol, rising among the lip of singing glass between concrete monoliths into form and void. Rising, indistinguishable as mass of septic overgrowth. The soul of the city intermingles with the poisonous gases floating above the heads of oblivious passerbyers. As above, so below, the soul of the city is as indistinguishable as translucent toxins that floats over the head of her lethargic people. There was nowhere for the smoke to go, behind the bar, behind the stock, accumulating on the dingy judgmental ceiling, looking down on patrons who find solitude in whiskey and amity in tequila. Empty bottles fill the table, booths like empty friends, who sing songs of smiling women behind enamored glasses. Outside the city, the pale sun rises over the crests of barren trees on soft brown dirt, tufted and tilled, frozen by permafrost. A bleak landscape gnarled by the winter winds, yet changed. A pale golden dawn hangs its hat upon lone pines and old oaks. The yawning winter leaves the fields crystalline, numinous. To the south, flat field yields a gray, wintry knolls that roll lazily, clasping together like the folded hands of Southern Baptists and sunny stained glass lit churches on Sunday mornings. A callous state of mind, terse and hardened by the dirt and rock and time. Glacial plains, fertile soil, limestone knobs, forest and field. A meandering mind chasing cats to and fro down the Wabash, in and out of steel mills and harvested seasons. Sterilized needles injecting serenity above and below Friday night football games. A sporadic Indiana mind.
Thank you so much, Heather. It's just delightful to have you read those poems, and I'm so happy you agreed to do this. So wonderful job. I believe that was your first poetry reading. Can I say that? Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
Really good job. So excellent job. Next on our list is Matt Rothrock. He's a former Talking Leaves managing editor, and he's been a contributor several times to different issues of the magazine. He's now head of the IUPUC Academic Resource Center, and he's going to read for us some of his original poetry. Matt.
Go, Matt.
Thank you for this opportunity. I brought two. One's about leaves, and one's about a place that's out in the middle of nowhere. That's really a very special place to me. So the first one is called Stained Leaves Speak, and I wrote this one probably about 12 years ago. So it's been a while since I've written poetry, and it's been a while since I've read poetry. So you have to bear with my rust a little bit here. Yeah, this one's called Stained Leaves Speak. I thumbed through a paperback history text for reference the other day. It opened right up to 2 wrinkled, coffee-stained pages. Oh yes, I remembered. 37,000 feet, Frontier Flight 608, October 20th, 2006. Routing Denver to Indianapolis. Cause? Turbulence? No, involuntary spasm. Snotty gay steward calls me the spiller as he brings ineffectual cocktail napkins. Religion gone bad, discussing the plight of gay Christians and the uber fundamentalists who crusade against a homosexual agenda. Blobs of General Tso's sauce, flecks of curry, a dot of soy from where an elusive gyoza slipped from my otherwise sure chopstick grasp. Now I can't eat Eastern cuisine without my blood boiling. That book is forever marked and, sad to say, borrowed from someone who has moved several zip codes away. Good poems for hard times, carefully and lovingly harvested and stored in a compact yellow jacket, organized in ways that make life a little bit easier to deal with, to understand. Fiery red blotches of pizza sauce across pages, or here or there on a Wallace Stevens poem. An excitable open mic performer decides to change his selections over and over again, seeking the one resonant text to buckle the knees or hemorrhage the ears or kill the buzz of his intoxicated listeners. A copy of The New Yorker purchased at a Hudson Books at some air hub as I wait to go from this spoke to that spoke. Some jaw-dropping fiction and poetry, hilarious cartoons covering a broad range of topics. As I go to cheer up the writing center with some wit. I find a smear of Thousand Island on a Tanqueray 10 full pager, a Schlotsky's Reuben, priced to sell on pumpernickel bread for $7 in lieu of airline food in a cold box for $4. All occasions where I was eating alone. Eating alone means something altogether different than being lonely. Reading material keeps my gaze from wandering to the youngish couple near the brink of tense, uninhibited drunkenness. The toned and tanned busboy's sinewy arms carrying his car payment or his virginal girlfriend's promise ring back to the dish tank, one tub at a time. Dysphoric businessmen paying separate tickets, remembering with longing the days of creative justification of expense reports. But an opportunity to rest my eyes on something lovely comes every once in a great while on these nights of otherwise solitary, spiritual, gastronomical meanderings. A senior couple celebrating an anniversary, still very much in love, still very much in tune with each other, blessed with the fortune of being able to read the other's face, thanking God that they can leave their dirty, food-stained books at home. And then the other one I'm going to read is called Crisp Point. And it's a lighthouse up in the UP of Michigan that's on the shore of Lake Superior. And this is about how you get there and what it's like up there. And it's right in the middle of nowhere. It's absolutely beautiful. It's one of my favorite places. It's my favorite place on earth. So this is called Crisp Point. I stood at the edge of the universe the other day, the first time I saw mighty Superior docile, quiet. No breakers or whitecaps, sky brilliant blue with the thinnest, wispiest of cirrus clouds. The beach stretched east and west, and then behind it, dense, desolate forest of pines, firs, birches, and maples, just starting to turn, pitcher thistle holding the dunes fast, swaying and shimmering in the wind. Getting there is an undertaking, a test of faith. Smooth state roads lead to sand country roads, lead to teeth chattering washboard, rock-strewn trails heavily canopied with second growth forest filtering sunlight. At the halfway point, a glassy, almost alpine lake encircled by stands of lodgepole pine and fir. No signs of civilization, save for fishermen in kayaks and rowboats, hoping to land muskie, northern pike, or yellow perch. Devastated, clear-cut forests have new growth as we near our goal, and those first glimpses of Superior can't help but hearten us as we anxiously await that white tower, crowned in red and wrought iron. There it is, 6 years hence. I behold Crisp Point light, so very different now as a complex has sprung up, as if out of the sand or emerged as if it had walked out of the woods. Plaques, planks carved with names, benches commemorating former keepers of the light, all homage to those who had made the effort, not just to see the light, but to save it. Save the structure itself from the fierce winter storms by shoring it up with hundreds of tons of boulders. Save the history of one of the Great Lakes life-saving stations. Save its natural surroundings by cultivating plants and trees that would hold the sand dunes in place. Monies raised through memberships, through boardwalk planks, through apparel sales, add to the idea that Crisp Point isn't just a little jut out into one of the Great Lakes. It is a place that inspires awe and respect, that changes people forever, whether they have known the structure for years or have happened upon it in their travels. They have kept the faith, kept the hope, kept the light, so that the new guard might find the magic standing tall and shining brightly at the edge of the universe.
Thank you so much, Matt. Fabulous, fabulous. Oh, I just love hearing your poems. Next on our list and our final poet for this evening is Dr. Kate Wills. She publishes under the nom de plume Katerina Chopos and has an array of poetry publications, including the 2013 chapbook, Our Slow Migration North. She's recently been published in the Inverse Poetry Archive, and those poems represent the landscape and the people of Indiana. She's currently writing her third chapbook. It features eco-poetry and human-animal relationships. And I'm not sure what poem she's going to read for us now, but I am sure her poems will draw attention to the fun of playing in nature.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Lisa. Thank you, Dr. George. Thank you, Joan. And thank you to IUPUC for having this celebration of artists and writers, dreamers and workers, all of us for Arbor Day celebrations and for creative works also. And I also want to say that this work I'm going to read today is something that grew out of, is still developing out of a sabbatical that was given to me again by IUPUC and the Division of Liberal Arts and the administration of IUPUC. So I thank them for giving me the time for this creative activity. I mean, we do research, we do creative activity, and it really is important sometimes for artists to renegotiate their minds and their space, maybe rethink their work, because sometimes we do take a change. And I've made a move into what I would call eco-poetry, ecological poetry. A lot of my work was family-based, as is actually very normal. Many young meaning under 40 or under 50 writers will work through the issues of family, relationships, children, lovers. And I think I'm kind of moved into that next stage, which is really, what do I want to look forward to in a different way, not looking back. And it has really fallen in this area of animals, nature, catapulted by kind of a new activism in poetry also, not so much introspective, but looking out into the world. There are so many areas to look at. There's slam poetry, hip hop poetry, other issues, topics, themes, but this is the one that I've settled on. And so it's very much developing. I did have a title that was different when I put in the proposal. It had something very different, but currently the chapbook title is called Complicit in Green. And it is a collection, they're individually longer and more narrative poems. They're not as short and as lyrical as some of my other previous imagistic work had been. And the theme generally and loosely is situated in the subgenre of eco poetry, which in different forms has been around since at least since the beginning of time to discussing it, but in this current inflection, really since about the 1900s, some of the transcendentalist writers looking at a type of nature relationship with human beings. So what are human-animal bonds? What can they look like? What is human responsibility for natural upheavals? How can humans read the signs of nature, the human nature and the nature inside and outside that we exhibit, that we live through? A lot of my poems are ekphrastic, and that means that they refer to statues, sculptures, art creations, music that other people have created, because I have found these to be very powerful and referential across cultures. So one example, and it also takes in part of my life. And in one example, I have when I was traveling in Moscow, in their subway system, they have bronze dogs. They're about, I'd say 3 feet high, and they're where you go into the trains, and so many of the people going to work will touch the brass nose of the dogs for good luck. And the Muscovite I was with had never noticed it. He hadn't paid attention. But I said, "What are they doing?" And he said, "Oh, well, I don't know. and he asked someone, he said, and this is a good luck charm. So there's an entire culture in the underground of touching the dog's nose for good luck. And you might have heard, you might have seen some of the stories about the movies, some of them about Max, some of them about Rex, some of them about Hacho, the dog that waited, the Japanese dog that waited for his human companion. The man actually had a heart attack at work, and his human companion did not come home, and the dog waited outside for until he died. The dog actually died at the train station waiting for his master. So what I wind up having to balance is kind of an animal sentimentality, and oh, isn't this sad, or isn't this cute, as compared to a real kind of edginess of having to deal with nature. So this is a balance that I work through in terms of the themes and the credibility of the work itself. I have quite a few allusions in my work that might be implicit or explicit, and they might have to do with mythology. They might have to do with trees in mythology. I talk about Narcissus and the weeping willows, and weeping willows are by water, and some flowers also come up that Narcissus fell in love with himself by the riverside, because he was so much in love seeing his reflection in the water, and he was so beautiful that nature wept for him and left the weeping willow there as a tree to commemorate him. So there are thousands cross-culturally of these beautiful, and that's a very simplified, raw description that I've given you, but thousands of beautiful stories through all cultures about nature relationships, human relationships that are available actually to all of us and still exist if we are there to respond to them. So I find that giving the context helps my audience. It's sometimes easier when you have a book to read. But the context for this, I'm going to read two kind of nature poems, one from the 1800s and one from the 1900s, just so you can see the style a little bit and what's going on. So the context, the initial context for this reading begins with two poems. And in both cases, there was this a desire to make the trees as metaphors for the human body. Pretty straightforward. A lot of poems find that a convenient way, different views of the trees as metaphors for human body. I would almost call them fetishes. Very often it's a female body. And you will see that in the first poem from the 1800s. But I want you to see how I read these works and then incorporate, well, not incorporate, but take to the next level and these works, and then reinterpret them in something for the 2000s, for the 21st century. So quickly, these are short poems. I'm going to read Trees by Joyce Kilmer. And you might have even heard some of these. I think that I shall never see a poem as lovely as a tree whose hungry mouth is pressed against the sweet earth's flowing breast, a tree that looks at God all day and lifts her leafy arms to pray, a tree that may in summer wear a nest of robins in her hair, upon whose bosom snow has lain, who intimately lives with the rain. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree. So a very definite kind of metaphor there for the tree as a woman, as this fertile kind of being. And then in the 1900s, about 20th century, a personification of trees as dressing and undressing, as you'll see through here, through the seasons, for the viewer, for the person who has the gaze. It was a William Carlos Williams, one of my favorite imagist poets. And this is a little more truncated because it is imagistic, so I'll slow it down a little bit. All the complicated details of the attiring and the disattiring are completed. A liquid moon moves gently among the long branches, thus having prepared their buds against a sure winter. The wise trees stand sleeping in the cold. So it's a very stark poem about, we have watched the trees grow leaves and dress and then drop their leaves and undress. And now they're going through this long winter and they can stand against nature. It's a little bit of a kind of a stark, dark poem. But again, the notion of we watch you, this gaze on the trees as personifications or as metaphors for a type of human. So initially I'm calling my poem, and it's really one poem in multiple parts. It's in 4 parts, and it's called Tree Buds, but I think I'm going to change that. I'm pretty sure. If you remember, both of the previous poems had the word bud in it. So that was very important, that the trees, that the notion of hope, of possibility, of budding remains very important to both of those poets. And so the bud actually has a bud of ideas that it refers to. And so I have subtitles to each of the stanzas, and this one is called Gaze. The first stanza of Tree Buds is Gaze. We take you seriously as living, sentient beings. Only when we gaze on you as an inhabited body, the metaphor, your branches, arms, your trunk, a torso, your leaves, chattering, whispering, susurrus, susurrus. Your body belongs to us, attiring, disattiring. We tell you, you hold power over us, like the weeping willow, pensive, wet at the river's edge, where narcissus drown. Then we turn, name your ugly cousins, your seductive sister, sycamore with her psoriatic peeling skin, sweet maple dripping on our pancakes, and female ginkgo, full of soft, fleshy, stinking seeds. We love you the best. Ebony, we won't forget ebony, ancient ebony, black root of the earth ebony. We know you, trees. We own you, trees. Part 2, Occupy. The logging trucks pitch and roll along the narrow rural roads to saw buzzing mills, to Carolina furniture factories, to those snippety, smug Euro homes consuming warm red, cool white oak planking, all underfoot. You are like the lungs of the earth. You are a simile that converts the sun into hope. We trust you will continue to baptize us in oxygen. Part 3, Forester. I told him to hire the Amish loggers with their horses instead of using heavy machinery. No skids that ravage the forest floor. These are woke, starved men who read the trees and earth with their loyal bucephalus. Yeah, 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 gee up! Billowing condensed breath, hooves precarious, slips sliding in mud, horses named Midnight, Moonlight, and Adam. We let horses pull down and drag the trees, not men. The trees felt respected. A year later, he decided to trim that single lateral branch overhanging the pine deck, with chainsaw hungrily growling into the thick lateral with an engineer's geometry. By all dead reckoning, the branch should have fallen there. Our bodies have always been entwined. We escape into your heartwood, the beating heart of the tree. And that's the conclusion of that poem. And there's actually some of the logging. It's actually a general picture, but we did have a tree farm, hardwood tree farm, and this is kind of what the logging was with the horses. We had the Amish people come. We didn't want to have the machinery to get the horses. So this is the first inaugural poem reading from the book, and it will be with issues, with the complexity. I hope the poem brings out the complexity of the interrelations. That tree, actually, nobody was killed by the tree branch, but there was this whole adventure where we were going to cut a tree branch and it was going to fall a certain way, and we had it all figured out, but the tree fooled us and it almost took out our entire deck. But the trees have a way of doing their own thing when they want. So, and this is part of nature, is it kind of might make a virus or might do something that you're not expecting. So it's not benign, but it can be sweetly sentimental too. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Katharina. It's just so delightful that you were willing to share some of your new poems with us. That was what I was hoping, and it's so wonderful.